Now we move on to our Spotlight section, and this week, Warren talks to Sylvia van Os, the developer of the Race to Answer app.
I would like to welcome our friend Sylvia Van to the podcast. And Sylvia, today we're talking about a very important app that I stumbled upon, and that is the Race to Answer. And out of the blue, I was minding my business, so they say, and somehow on the Play Store, I ran into your app, and knowing that this app is something that blind people would like to use, and not only blind people, but I know over and over again on our mailing lists, people have been talking about an app that they would simply be able to put the phone to their ear and the phone should be answered without them doing anything else. But before we talk about that, I would like you to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll talk about Race to Answer.
Hi, I'm Sylvia van Os. I live in the Netherlands. I work as a system engineer, so Linux system administrator at a Dutch consultancy company. And in my spare time, I do a lot of random programming code, a lot of Android these days. Yeah, that's pretty much me.
Great. So when did you start programming for Android? I mean, I understand that this is more or less like a hobby for you, but then you did something that a lot of people like. And so what motivated you to do something for Android?
I bought something called an input stick, and it allows you to put a sort of USB stick into your PC and share text from your phone. And I kind of didn't really like the official app, so I was just like, let's see if it's possible to make my own thing. And I figured like, hey, this is a good moment to try to learn something new. And that's where I started with Android. That was a really simple app. After I kind of got into it, it was just like my dad got a new phone, and he was like, well, it's a kind of an expensive Fairphone, so I don't want to risk like getting paint over it. So I don't want to have to touch the screen with my fingers. So I was like, maybe I can solve this now. I know a bit of Android, and that's Race to Answer, and I kind of fell into it, and it's just fun to do Android most of the time.
Your story sounds very familiar because we have a similar app that was developed as a result of someone developing an app for their dad, and that has to do with an app called Voxmate, and which is also from a European background there in Estonia. And so you developed something for your dad, and now it's become a blessing to a lot of us. And so I find it really intriguing that, simple apps sometimes come as a result of someone trying to solve a problem for a family member, or someone trying to solve a problem because of his or her own need, because of a native app is not doing what they want, or some app that is there is not doing exactly what they want. So that gave birth to Race to Answer. Now, did you ever know that blind people could use smartphones? Have you ever run into blind people using any smartphones at all?
Actually, when I was still studying, back then I was studying software development at a University for Applied Sciences. Before I decided to instead go into Linux, and one of the projects was actually some indoor navigation app we had to build for blind people. It used kind of Bluetooth beacons like placed all over the facility. But everyone there was actually using iOS. There was only a single Android user because from what I heard from those people there, a lot of people just did not find TalkBack to work well enough. So I kind of always expected the vast majority of blind users would probably be iPhone users, not Android users. So it did slightly surprise me to find such a big active Android group.
Very interesting. Of course, that's what happens. A lot of times people think that blind people don't use Android, or what has happened is that a lot of the trainers have said Android is not usable or not friendly to the blind. And so as a result of that, a lot of blind people wind up struggling to get an iPhone because they're afraid to try Android, because the experts have indicated that Android is not blind friendly. And so it's not surprising to hear what you are saying, because that is typical of what's happening. But then, of course, you now engaged with us, and most especially on our Telegram group, and you can see that we have a lot of active blind users who use Android. Now, the story is an interesting one, because you came across us, our channel, the Blind Android Users YouTube channel. That's where you saw my demo of the race to answer in our episode 56. Now, how did you come about that? It's really interesting, because that's how you were able to join us on our Telegram group. Here I was planning on writing you and asking you, say, hey, Sylv, could you do something else? This is great, but we would love to see if you could make it to where if one takes it away from their ear, it could go to the speaker or something like that. Tell us that story as to how you came across the Blind Android Users channel on YouTube.
So I have this thing where just every now and then, I just Google my own projects just to see if anyone has done anything interesting, if anyone has written a review or shared their opinions, good or bad, so I can help and improve it. And in my last time that I just Googled the app, I came across the Blind Android Users channel. I believe it was like a day after you posted the video, so the timing was extremely interesting. But I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I just had to check it out. I just had to see hey, how well does it work? Because the way you were navigating it sounded really, really unfriendly. Like it was really hard to find all the UI elements. But I learned since joining your group that it seems to be that you just prefer to use touch to explore, and that the regular swiping left, right for the next and previous item wasn't that broken. There were some issues which the members of the group pointed out, which was amazing. So I've been able to already release an update that fixes some accessibility issues. It's just, I just had to know more because it sounded really cool.
That was a perfect timing, and what a coincidence that was, that here I did a review of the app, and then you are Googling it to see if anyone has done any reviews, and there it was. So there's an interesting part of the app that I am wondering if it is doable. In other words, blind people, sometimes when we call businesses like banks or companies and things like that, and one comes across the part that says, hey, enter your PIN, or, make a choice from the following and things like that. Now, in order for us to be able to do that, two things need to happen. Number one, we have to either find the speaker mode, tap on it, and put our phone in the speaker mode and activate the keypad. Or number two, have a headset to where we'll be able to find that speaker mode and tap on the dial pad and be able to interact with the keypad. Now, my question is, do you think that maybe sometime in the future down the line, maybe it would be possible for you to kind of figure a way of integrating the ability to make the call goes back to the speakerphone once one takes away that phone from his or her ear?
I have actually been doing some quick research on that, and it does seem like Android allows apps to change a call mode to speaker mode. So it sounds like it is technically possible. I will have to research a bit more, experiment a bit more, but I'm definitely going to look into it because I've heard a lot of people request this feature, and it would be cool to be able to help a lot of people at once.
That would be perfect. I think that's going to be a lot of blessing to a lot of people because that's an issue, a very big issue that people are always on a hunt for an app that would do that. But if this is possible down the line, and if you research it and integrate that into Race to Answer, that would be wonderful. Now, I know you do have another app before we bring this to a close. So there's an app that you have also created. And I call it the Arabian Girl because it has like a beautiful Arabian name, and that's called Katima. Could you talk about Katima?
Yeah, Katima is short for Card and Ticket Manager, and it's an app to store loyalty cards in. So I really care about open source apps because it's really nice to have the freedom to make changes, and I think it allows more people to like add their own needs to apps, even if the original developers don't care for it. And while I was looking for that, I found an app by an American named Brandon Archer. It was called Loyalty Card Keychain, and it did everything I wanted, but I was missing a few features here and there. So I started contributing those back. But at a certain point, Brandon didn't really have the time anymore to keep working on it. So I communicated with him, and we decided that it would be better if I would branch it off into a new app. But it was actually the whole base of Katima is the loyalty card keychain app from Brandon Archer. Katima is simply a continuation with features added that I wanted to add for myself.
Now, the beautiful thing about this, though, is that you have become aware of us or aware of blind people with the need for accessibility. I've never tried Brian's app, so I have no clue as to how accessible or inaccessible it is. And so now that you are now part of that, and even though you are not very familiar with accessibility until now that you come to know us blind people, you look at things differently. In other words, you're looking at apps from a different viewpoint, creating apps with accessibility in mind. And I think it's a blessing that you actually have come to be part of this and now merging this to becoming Katima. And that's going to be a blessing to us because if we do have a problem with the accessibility of the app, you are going to be there to help us, straighten that out. So I am so thankful that you have come into this. And it's such a perfect timing. And I've heard the story again and again, how it is that certain developers created apps or modify some other apps or recreate some other apps because it's not doing exactly what they wanted. I mean, they love everything about the app, but there are certain things that the app kind of falls short of, and so they have these other ideas, and then we wind up having a great app, and this would be the story with Katima. So we are looking forward to having a great app experience with this, and I'm going to be installing Katima myself. I just use GPay, and it would be nice to have something else besides GPay. And so with you doing this, I think it's a blessing to all of us. And so to close up for today, do you have any other thing to say before we bring this to a close? I know we really thank you for taking your time to come up and talk with us here at Blind Android Users Podcast.
Well, I first of all, I want to thank your whole community as well. It's been amazingly helpful in helping me understand TalkBack better so that I could actually implement these things. Because while during my education, Android was mentioned a bit, the word TalkBack had not come up a single time, sadly. The whole documentation regarding accessibility tooling is hard to find if you're new to accessibility in general. But yeah, I have been really grateful for all the help of your community, and I hope that we can keep working together to help make everything more accessible.
Thank you so much for doing that, and hopefully, maybe we may have another app, from you. Who knows? See, I'm all about simplistic apps. I really like simple apps that make things easy, and Race to Answer is absolutely one of those beautiful, simple apps that I really adore. So thank you so much for developing both Race to Answer and Katima.
Yeah, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
And those of you who are members of the Blind Android Users Telegram group may have seen Sylvia contributing to that, which I think is great. Warren, what were your takeaways from that interview?
It's a great interview, and I'm really excited about this Race to Answer because a lot of blind people sometimes have difficulty. Some, most especially newcomers to Android, have difficulty answering their phones. And so just having this app and all that it takes is for you to put the phone up against your ear and your phone call is answered. And so this is a beautiful thing, and I think it's something that needs to be told, that we have another way of answering calls if you don't want to use your fingers to swipe up or find and tap on the answer, or double tap or whatever. So we have a beautiful way of answering phone calls.
I'm wondering though, because when I answer the phone, I press the up volume key. Is that just Samsung? Does that only work on?
Yeah,
that's Samsung.
Yeah, that's why other
Samsung.
people
Yeah.
don't do that then. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a dexterity thing, really. It's not a screen reader thing.
It's handy though.
But no, it's a great app. Do check it out on the Play Store. Link obviously in the show notes.